Welcome everybody who's here, and thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today with Paul Scott and Travis Otto with the Organic Corn Breeding Partnership. My name is Kenna Bell. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator for the Iowa Organic Association, and I will be moderating this webinar today. And before I pass it along to Paul and Travis, I just wanted to share a few housekeeping things before we get started. So first of all, I've enabled the Q&A today. So go ahead and enter any questions or comments you have during the presentation, and I will be reading those out loud at the end for Paul and Travis to answer for you. And then I'm also recording the webinar today, and I'll be posting it on YouTube, so you can continue viewing and sharing if you'd like. And then I'll be sending that link out to each of you along with Paul's contact information and a short survey as well. So that's another opportunity for you all to ask any questions or provide feedback about today's webinar. And it's also really helpful for us as we continue planning our education and outreach programming. So just takes a few minutes and would be super helpful if you would do that for us. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quick. Just wanted to share a little bit of information about the IOA for those of you who are maybe new here. So yeah, the Iowa Organic Association, we are a nonprofit organization that was founded in 2006, and we have a statewide presence. Our members are a diverse community of farmers, gardeners, food farm businesses, advocates, researchers, and consumers that champion organic production and products. Our mission is to advance organic agriculture and food systems in Iowa, and we hold values such as prioritizing ecosystem integrity, community and collaboration, and economic vitality. So we have many priorities and programs. So our organization focuses on education and training. So this winter webinar series is a part of that. And we've just finalized the full schedule for the rest of the series all the way through the end of March. So all of those are now available to register on our website on the calendar and webinar page. So definitely check that out. We also do college visits, field days, technical workshops, and we have many additional resources both online and in print. And all of our webinars and most of our education and outreach programming is funded through the USDA's Risk Management Agency, RMA grant. So we're also available to provide lots of technical support and resources all across the state. And a big part of this right now is our partnership with the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, or TOP, which I'll explain a little bit more about in the next slide. We also conduct outreach, so we travel all across the state. This includes our social media, our website, e-news, and other online presence. Susanna, another IOA member, and myself are actually traveling to Marbleseed tomorrow for their conference in Wisconsin. So lots of really cool ways that we're able to connect with the organic community. We also communicate with our policy leaders about organic and about the benefits of supporting and providing policies and other resources for the organic community. And then, of course, we focus on growing the organic community in Iowa to continue to provide support for each other and just help grow this overall movement across the state. So as I mentioned, a big part of our technical support and outreach programming has been made possible through our partnership with TOP. So we're really grateful for that because it allows us to provide even more resources to the organic community. And we're especially excited about our new organic farm advisor, Susanna. She started in January and she's been leading our organic mentorship program. She'll also be involved with some of the field days and technical workshops and other outreach events. So definitely reach out to her for any of that technical assistance, and also if you're interested in being an organic mentor or mentee. And I also wanted to make sure to mention here the NRCS Organic Management Standard 823. So OMS 823 provides conservation contracts for producers who are in transition to organic and for those who are already certified. And you can apply for this at your county NRCS office. And producers who are transitioning to organic have a March 1st deadline for applications. So that's coming up quick, but it's definitely still possible to make it happen. And we're happy to assist you with that in any way we can. And then certified organic producers have a deadline of April 5th for their applications as well. So we have a bunch more information about the range of payments and the application process on our website. And of course, you can reach out to us anytime about that as well. So yeah, here's our contact information, myself with Education and Outreach Coordination, and then Susanna, again, she's the Organic Farm Advisor and can help with the mentor program and also things like OMS 823. So yeah, that's just a little bit about the IOA. Let's see if I can stop sharing here. Sweet. Okay, so I want to give the majority of the hour here to Paul and Travis to talk about the Organic Corn Breeding Partnership Program. So we're really excited to have them with us today. It's kind of perfect timing because they both just got back from their boot camp in Puerto Rico. It was the second year of that trip, and it was Travis's first time going. So we're going to give Paul a bit of time in the beginning to share some background and information about the program in general, and then Travis will close out with some photos and personal reflections and stories about his trip. So without further ado, I will make you the host, Paul. You can take it away.
Thank you, Kenna. I am attempting to share.
I think it should be good now.
There we go.
Sweet.
Okay, are you seeing the first slide? Yes, okay, thank you. All right, well, again, thanks, Kenna, for that introduction, and thanks to the Iowa Organic Association for hosting this webinar and inviting us to do this presentation today. We're going to talk about breeding corn for organic production systems. And there's quite a bit of activity in this area now. And one of the big reasons for that, I'm not able to advance my slides. Hang on, I got to figure out my technical issue here.
No worries.
There we go. Okay, one of the big reasons that this corn breeding activity is possible is because there is a competitive funding program sponsored by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. NIFA is the competitive funding branch of the USDA. And the program that funds our research is called OREI, Organic Research and Education Initiative. And this program is nice because the grants are large. You can get a lot done with them. And they're focused on organic, so they require that all of the activities in the grant are done in organic management conditions. It encourages breeding, which is something that other grant programs haven't funded traditionally. And that was a big help to breeders. And then it also has an outreach component. And I'm going to talk mostly about our breeding effort today, and then Travis will talk a little bit about the outreach component that he participated in. And then I just want to highlight, okay, well, let me give you a little history too. So the first grant in this area that was funded was in 2010, and Linda Pollock here was the PI of that grant. And over the years, we've had different groups of people involved in these breeding efforts. And the grant that I'll talk about today is funded to this particular group. I'm the project director, and then the co-PIs are Thomas Lubberstedt of Iowa State University, Martin Bohn of the University of Illinois, and Angela Linares of the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. And then there's another grant that is in Iowa, held by Thomas Lubberstedt, with Kathleen DeLate and Bill Tracy. Kathleen's from Iowa State University, Bill from the University of Wisconsin. And yeah, Kathleen asked me to just highlight some of the work that she's been doing with organic farmers. Kathleen has been working with organic farmers in Iowa for a long time. And one of the things she's done is organize strip trial tests of organic varieties planted on organic farms. And every year she collects seed and delivers them to the farmers, and they have a field day and talk about the varieties that they like in there. So that's a great activity. And Kathleen was really helpful to us for introducing us to farmers that she has worked with in the past. Okay, so I want to start with a question. Why do we breed, or why do we want to breed organic corn? Because there are seed companies that breed corn for conventional systems, and one possibility is that we could just use those conventionally produced corn varieties for our organic production, right? So to answer that question, we need to look at the organic supply chain. And if you want to market an organically labeled animal product like meat or eggs, the organic requirements state that you have to raise those animals on organic feed. And then if that organic feed contains grain, that grain has to be certified organic as well. And the regulations even state that the seed that produces that grain has to be certified organic. So that would mean production in our organic management systems. But it turns out that there's a loophole at this stage that allows conventional seed. Okay, so the loophole states that conventionally produced seed can be used when no organic equivalent is available. And most of the seed that is produced for organic grain now is not produced organically, because it's hard to do that, and this loophole allows companies to market conventionally produced grain to organic farmers. So that's if we had organically produced varieties, that would allow us to close that loophole. But it's a difficult thing to do, and that's something that our project is working on to try to improve that. If you compare organic and conventional corn, there's some differences that make it desirable to have varieties that are specifically tailored to organic production systems. So one thing that's different is the management that is used. So for example, insect pests are controlled by GMOs and pesticides in conventional corn systems, whereas organic farmers use biocontrol and native insect resistance. Weeds are managed differently with herbicides versus crop rotation and cultivation. Fertility is different. Chemical fertilizers are used in conventional corn, and manure and other fertilizer products are used in organic. Early vigor is a big issue that is controlled with chemical treatments, seed treatments in conventional farming. Organic producers plant later, usually into warmer soil, so the seed germinates and they don't have to worry as much about early vigor. And there are some organic seed treatments, but they tend to not be as effective as the chemical treatments that the conventional folks use. In addition to management, the uses of organic corn are different than conventional corn. The main difference here is that half the conventional corn grown in the US is put into biofuels now. And organic, pretty much all of the organic corn is used in either animal food or feed. So because you have different target uses, you have the opportunity to tailor organic varieties to be better suited to those end uses. And that really means nutritional quality is going to be more valued for organic than it is for conventional corn producers. So I just want to focus in on those differences now a little bit. So in our breeding program, these are the targets of selection that we're interested in. Of course, yield is the big thing. We have to have yield, and it's got to yield in organic systems, which means we need early season vigor without seed treatments, and we need natural resistance to insect and diseases. And then we also breed for some quality traits, including nutritional value, but there's a lot of different kinds of specialty grain. White, blue, orange. Waxy is a type of corn that is valued for its starch properties, and it has some industrial uses because it has those novel starch property. And then grain hardness is important anytime the corn is milled or ground before it's used. Another thing that we're interested in our program is genetic purity. One of the big issues with organic producers is that GMO pollen from adjacent fields can blow into an organic field and actually pollinate the organic corn. If that corn, if the grain produced in that field is then tested and it comes up positives for GMOs, the farmer could lose the premium that they get paid for organic corn because organic corn can't have GMO contamination in it. So the ability to exclude GMO pollen is a trait that is conferred by a gene called GA1S, and we've been doing some work on that in our breeding program. I just want to contrast that with what the breeding program for conventional corn would look like. So in conventional corn, you don't have to worry about the early season vigor, as we said, because of seed treatment, and we have transgenes and pesticides that take care of insects and diseases. And really, most conventional corn is marketed as #2 yellow dent. So the quality traits, there are quality standards for #2 yellow dent, but the bar is a lot lower there. So it's a lot easier to meet those standards. And what that leaves basically is the conventional people are really able to focus on yield. While when we're breeding for organic, we're pulled in a lot of different directions. And so I want to talk about why that's important, but first I need to indicate, I need to describe how a plant breeding program works. So at a real basic level, you start with a breeding population. You evaluate the individuals in the population, so measure their yield or their quality, and then you select the good ones, and you recombine those selections to create a new breeding population. So that's one cycle of selection. And the gain from breeding is proportional to the number of cycles. So every cycle you get a little bit of gain, and the more cycles you can do, the better your gain is. And one way we maximize this, the number of cycles that we can do, is we have a winter nursery that allows us to do a breeding cycle in the winter each year, and or a part of a breeding cycle. And that's what our outreach program is based on. Our winter nursery is in a tropical environment where it's when it's cold and you can't grow corn in Iowa. Okay, but back to breeding then. The number of targets that you have to select for in a breeding program impacts your breeding progress. And I'm going to illustrate that here with a couple of corn populations. These would be our breeding populations. And if you select for yield, you can identify the best plants, and then, those are your selections and you move forward with those. In organic, because we have to select for things like insect resistance and early vigor, it's less likely that we're going to have one plant that has all those traits, right? Those traits are scattered about the population. And so it's a lot harder to select the best individual. So we're lucky here, there's one individual that has all 3 traits, and we can advance the breeding program with that. But you can see that it's much easier if you only have one trait to select for. It's a lot easier to make progress than it is if you have multiple traits. And so the bottom line there is that progress in breeding for organic is going to be slower than progress in breeding for conventional production systems. And then that translates over the number of breeding cycles. Organic systems will ultimately fall behind in yield, behind what conventional corn varieties can do. So that's something that it's important to be aware of. And it's just the nature of the complexity of breeding for organic production systems. Okay, so I mentioned some traits that we're looking for. And when I say traits, I don't mean traits in the GMO sense. I mean, these are characteristics of the plants, right? Genetic purity and nutritional quality, I'm going to say a little bit more about, because those are big areas that we're focusing on. But at least as important is the work that Dr. Lubberstedt and others are doing with doubled haploids. This is a breeding method that allows you to breed more efficiently. And Dr. Lubberstedt has developed a way that is consistent with organic production, with organic standards, that allow us to use doubled haploid breeding in an organic program. So Kenna, that would be a great topic for a webinar in this series sometime. Okay, so let's move on to the ability to exclude GMO pollen. So corn has flowers like all flowering plants. The female flower is the ear, and the silks are the stamens of that flower. They're the ones that actually capture the pollen that is shed by the tassel of the plant, which is up on top of the plant. So pollen is transferred through air currents and gravity from the tassel to the silk, and then each silk winds up, that has a pollen grain on it, will produce one kernel on the ear of the corn plant, and that's how the plants reproduce. Okay, so cross incompatibility is conferred by this GA1S gene that is naturally found in popcorn. And the way this gene works is that popcorn can pollinate itself, and it can also pollinate any other corn. Dent corn or field corn is, I use those terms interchangeably. But the difference is that plants containing this gene cannot be pollinated by other plants that do not contain this gene. So dent corn can't pollinate popcorn. And what I guess what we're doing in our program is transferring this GA1S gene from popcorn into varieties that we'd like to use for organic production. And so the diagram stays the same, with the arrows and things are the same, but you can see this would be now most of the, or all of the GMO corn that we are aware of has the lowercase version of this gene, and therefore it can't pollinate organic corn carrying the GA1S system. So that's how the system works. So the gene is naturally present in popcorn. Oliver Nelson proposed in the 50s to use this system to maintain the genetic purity of specialty corn varieties. Tom Hogemeyer started using it in organic hybrids, and currently this system is available in some commercial organic hybrids. The Purigene trademark, or Puramase trademark, sorry, is corn that contains this GA1S system. So so that's one of the activities that we're working on. And then the second component of our breeding program is focused on nutritional quality. And the area where we're doing the most work is for poultry feed. It turns out that there's an amino acid called methionine that is nutritionally limited in the diets of poultry. There's a lot of methionine in feathers, so they have an unusually high requirement for methionine, and corn and soybeans both are limited in the level of methionine. So what poultry producers do is they provide the methionine in the diet as a chemical supplement. So back in about 2010, there was discussion among the National Organic Standards Board about whether this chemical supplement should be phased out and not allowed in organic poultry diets. And they decided to, because there was no good solution, no alternative sources of methionine, they decided to leave the supplement in place. It can still be used. It's limited in the amount that can be used, but it's still allowable. And so we've been using recurrent selection to try to develop high methionine corn. And we're at the level now where our methionine levels are sufficient in that animal diet that they wouldn't need supplementation if they're used in animal feed. So it might be possible to revisit that loophole that allows chemical supplements in poultry diets now that we have some corn that meets the nutritional requirement for that nutrient. We're also in this poultry product, we're working on the orange color of the grain because the color of the grain impacts the color of eggs, especially the yolks, and the color of the meat as well. And people like orange yolks in meat. And we're working with North Circle Seeds to produce orange high methionine corn for poultry. And we had some of that out in our winter nursery for the farmers to look at this winter. So I'll just summarize the research part of it then with a couple of quick bullets. So different management practices for production and different end uses of organic corn make breeding for organic corn a worthwhile activity, I think. And we can discuss that if you'd like in the discussion time. And then what I like about this project is that some of the new varieties that we produce might help close some of the loopholes that are present in the current organic regulations, which I think would be looked upon favorably by organic producers and the public who consumes the organic products. Okay, I just want to now give a quick introduction to our outreach activity before turning it over to Travis. So I'll just summarize what we do. So we have our organic winter nursery in Puerto Rico every year. Puerto Rico is this Caribbean island here. So here's Florida up here, and the equator runs right down through here. So Puerto Rico is a tropical environment. We can grow corn year round there. So in the wintertime, we go down there and make crosses in our winter nursery. So the nursery is that we use is managed by the University of Puerto Rico, Mayaguez. They have a tropical agriculture research station in the state of Lajas there. And our cooperator, Angela Linares, helps us a lot with that winter nursery. And we really appreciate that. So the activity that we organized for our grant, we call our corn breeding boot camp. And what we do is we wanted to get together 3 groups of people that don't often have the opportunity to get together and talk about organic corn and breeding and production. So we're bringing scientists and then farmers from the Midwest and then students, in this case from the University of Puerto Rico, Mayaguez. And we have them all, we use grant funds to bring everybody to our winter nursery in Puerto Rico. And while we're there, we have discussions about plant breeding and teach people principles of plant breeding. We also pollinate our winter nursery, so we're doing some work while we're down there, and that helps us demonstrate hands-on breeding methods. We discuss the research needs. The farmers, give us feedback on the traits that they're interested in and their varieties, what's important to them. So we can make sure that our research, our breeding programs are relevant to their needs. And then we've also identified a number of opportunities for collaboration, which was really exciting to me because the people that we had at our boot camp this year were so enthusiastic about participating in our research. It was really exciting to talk about what everybody can do to help with this important work that we're doing. So then the other half of the program happens in the Midwest. So when it's time to pollinate our corn in July, we bring the students from the University of Puerto Rico up to Iowa, and they get to visit the farms of the farmers from the Midwest who they met when they were in Puerto Rico, all working together. And these students then they do internships where they learn more about plant breeding and help us pollinate our summer nursery. So we get there's a lot of benefits that go around for everybody involved in this group. And it's just a great activity. And I think I'll stop there and let Travis give his viewpoint on. He was one of the participants in our boot camp just a few weeks ago. So I need to stop sharing, right?
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. And I'll go ahead and share your slides for you, Travis.
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
All right, there we go.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a beautiful picture of some mountains in the background and some corn growing there. And I was lucky enough to go down and see some of that, and lucky enough to have Paul had chosen me at a other Iowa Organic Association field day. And when I was going down there, I really wasn't sure what to expect going into it. And so I didn't really have much for expectations, but boy, was I blown away. It was an amazing learning experience. And being able to be hands-on and see what's actually going on there, and actually doing some pollinating ourselves and then learning about the system afterwards was incredible. And we had a great group of people, and we had awesome discussions about all sorts of topics. And I think combining the how the breeding is done, but more importantly, discussing the why, is a great aspect of this program. And as Paul said earlier, with his breeding in organic systems, there's so many possible things that he could work on that he's pulled in a bunch of directions. And being able to discuss with us what things are important to us, I think is a great aspect. And I'm sure we gave him way too many suggestions than he could ever work on, but maybe he'll work on one of those in the future.
No such thing as a bad idea, right?
Right. You never know until somebody thinks about it. And it was great just being able to see. I'd never seen what an inbred corn plant looked like. I didn't know how the pollinating was done. We were able to do some crosses and make our own hybrids and take pollen from one plant and pollinate multiple plants with that. And it was really a unique experience, because I mean, obviously the location is incredible, and seeing, how corn even grows down in a location like that with the pest pressure and disease pressure that they have down there, and how surprisingly similar the soil was. Uh, but yeah, it was very cool, and I learned a lot of information. And it's great to learn from people that are so passionate about what they do, like Paul and Martin. They're really dedicated to what they do, and that's so important to have people like that working on projects like this, because I just paid my taxes yesterday, and as I was writing the check, I thought to myself, boy, I'm really glad a little bit of this is going to people like Paul and Martin, because this work really is important. I mean, if it wasn't for them, especially with uh, the pollen exclusion and being able to preserve some of these traits, uh, and the nutritional quality is, I think, going to be a very important thing going forward, especially in organics. And I think that's important to a lot of people. Whereas, in conventional systems, it's all about the numbers. You just make as much as you can and make more the next year. And that makes more fuel and feeds more people, but it might not feed them more nutritionally. So I'm really, really happy that we were able to discuss those types of whys and see what the possibilities are in the future for some of those things. And working with the students as well. In the picture shown are some of the students next to Angela. And, it's exciting to see people that are excited about the same types of information, and seeing them work hands-on on it as well is great. And I'm very excited going forward to have some of the students come to my farm, and along with the potential collaborations, which is really exciting, and help further this research in any way I can. But I think that's about all I had to say. So
Awesome. Thank you, Travis. And it's so cool to see these pictures and to hear, especially since it's so fresh in your mind, some of the experiences you got from this trip. And I'm curious also, like, what are you planning to bring back onto your own farm that you gained from this experience? I'll stop sharing.
Well, as Paul had mentioned, we're thinking about starting some collaborations with some of the things that he's working on. I don't know if you want to, am I free to discuss that or not yet?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. Yeah.
Okay, so
no strings.
Pretty excited about working on some isolations and seed grow outs for Paul's work, and to help increase the area and ability of where those projects can be done, because it's great to have something in an organic system that's a real world application, to see how it performs on my farm, or Will, another one of the participants' farm. And he's in Illinois and I'm in Iowa, and we'll get radically different data from those 2 points, I'm sure, and it'll be great to see that. And also just having some of that data from what they're working on to compare even to what I'm using now with the traditional organic hybrids that you can buy. As Paul had mentioned, there is a loophole where you can buy conventional non-treated GMO seed. I don't hardly ever do that. That's very, I try to support the organic seed growers, because I know providing funding to companies that focus on organic seed is important, because of what Paul had mentioned with how long and difficult that process is, comparatively to just selecting for yield. So yeah, I'm very excited to work on some of these projects and see some of this data firsthand. So, and
Definitely. No.
the students hopefully coming to my farm as well too. That'll be a neat experience for them and for me.
Definitely. No, I think it's really amazing how this program not only focuses on the research and the science of it, but also developing those interdisciplinary and global collaborations that are so important to sustainability in general. So very cool. And we actually did have a question in the Q&A that was related to that loophole that I will ask you now, if that's okay. So Greg is asking, when you referred to that loophole that said when there is no organic equivalent, he's wondering if you could define equivalent, like equivalent to what, and does it have to do with yield potential, relative maturity, or something else?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm not an expert in that area, so I probably can't answer it as well as others could. And uh, yeah, so I'm not sure how stringent they are with what they're calling equivalent, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's from my experience, it's very lax. It's like saying um, if you wanted to get a Coke from a Pepsi company, they can't provide that, so you just go buy the Coke instead, rather than planning the Pepsi or whatever, drink. Yeah, that's about the best analogy I can come up with, and it's not, you'd have to show a little bit of documentation that you made an attempt to source something else organically, but it's not a very stringent rule.
That makes sense. Um,
That's my experience anyway. I don't really know the details behind it, to be honest, but
no, definitely. And
I
you're,
know a lot of farmers who do that frequently, and
mhm. No, it makes sense. And your hands-on experience with it is very useful. So thank you. We have another question here too. So Ted is asking if the breeding work being done is on both white and yellow corn.
yeah, we do have, well, whenever we can, we make white and yellow versions of everything that we're working on, because there's a lot of value in white. So that's something that we try to work on. And for the corn that excludes foreign pollen, the cool thing about that is it not only excludes GMO pollen, but if we put that into our white corn, it will exclude yellow pollen that's grown nearby. So that genetic purity trait is important, not just for excluding GMOs, it's also good for keeping white corn white, keeping the yellow out of the white corn. So, yep, that's an area we work on.
Awesome. Erica is asking where in the Midwest the other farmer participants are from. I'm assuming that's for the boot camp as
Sure,
well.
yeah. So this year we had people from Minnesota, let's see, Illinois, and two from Iowa. So they're spread out a bit. Last year everybody was from Iowa, so we're trying to diversify a little bit.
I love that. And I wanted to follow up. So obviously this is the second year. What were the big differences between the first two trips, and what are you hoping for moving forward into the next trip next winter?
Yeah, from my standpoint, I'd like to get more, a greater variety of people. We haven't had anybody from a larger seed company join us, and I think that would really add a great perspective to the program. Yeah, I think it's about bringing people together. So anybody who brings an interesting perspective, I think would be a great addition to the group. And I'm hoping also we'd like alumni of our program to come back, and share their experiences after they've been through it once. That I think it would be really cool if we could grow the event a little bit and make it, a little miniature workshop in Puerto Rico every year.
I love it. That's so cool. Um, we have a question about pollen as well. So Allura is asking, how far can pollen travel typically? And is there a problem with bees cross-pollinating, specifically with GMOs?
Yeah, so pollen can fly a long way. It's tiny. It's a dust. You can barely see the grains. And when it gets into the wind currents, it can fly a long ways and it can stay viable for quite a while. So people okay, so the industry standard isolation distance is 660 feet, right? But people have detected pollen flying more than half a mile. So it can fly a long ways, and it can be carried by bees, especially in Puerto Rico. There are so many bees around the tassels of the corn where you're constantly, you know, handling bees, trying to make the pollinations. And they can cross-pollinate, but our GA1S system that we use will exclude the pollen that's transferred by bees as well. It doesn't matter if they're pollinated by bees or air currents. This GA1S system will exclude that foreign pollen.
I didn't know that specific distance, so that's wow.
Yeah, it's a long ways. It's hard to find an area that is not within that distance, within the Midwest and the Corn Belt, right? There's corn everywhere.
Yeah. Makes your work even more important.
So Mac has a question about the germplasm that we use. Yeah, the germplasm that we use in this program is all publicly available. So we use germplasm that was released by universities. We use XPVP lines. Martin Bohn especially does a lot of work with XPVP lines, and he's had some great success by combining PVP lines that were released by different companies. You know, so those are combinations that haven't been tried by industry. And then the other thing is there's a USDA sponsored program called GEM that I'm sure you know about, and we use their germplasm pretty heavily in our program as well. So yeah, everything is public domain, and so it's a little bit different than what the companies are using. But you know, I think we're having good results with it.
It's good to know, and thank you for answering that one. Saw one more, I think oh no, we got that one. So you mentioned different, oh, I'll answer this one. I think this is a follow-up from Ted here. How do you determine if the GA1 system is in a variety, I think it says?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of our big goals was we wanted to make a molecular marker to detect it, so we don't have to measure the phenotype that the plants have, because it's difficult to do that. And our marker is still not perfect, so we do spend a lot of time phenotyping. That's, you know, measuring the pollen exclusion that the plant has. And we have a bunch of different ways to do it. So the simplest way is you can take a plant that you're testing and you can dump pollen from a plant that should be excluded onto the ear. And then at harvest time, that ear should not have any kernels on it. So that's one way to test it. But there's a lot of ways to get an ear with no kernels on it. So that's not the most reliable test. And so what we do is we use pollen that produces colored grain. And so we'll make a mixture of yellow and blue pollen, and that's grain colors, and dump that onto a silk that we're testing. And if the blue pollen should be excluded and the yellow pollen should come through, that's the way we design the test. And so then we can just look at the ear and ask how many blue kernels are on there and how many yellow kernels. And that ratio of blue to yellow actually gives us a quantitative measure of the degree of pollen exclusion that plant has. So it's complicated and it requires these special genetic stocks, but it's possible to measure that.
That's fascinating. And is it commercially available right now, or?
But there's definitely blue corn that does not that should be excluded by this system available on the market that could be used. We don't use any special variety.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, okay, I guess I'm not sure if Ted's question is there a commercially available variety now? Are you asking about commercial varieties containing the GA1S system, or are you talking about the testing components?
Yeah, Ted, if you want to go ahead and reply to that, if you're able, we can get a more specific answer for you.
Or I guess maybe even referring to any of the varieties that we're producing in our program. And so far, none of our varieties have been released commercially, although we're at the point where, you know, we need to be talking to people about, you know, who's interested in the material that we're working with.
Definitely. Do you have a time frame in mind for what's possible there?
Yeah, so you know, breeding programs, I think of them as a pipeline, right? And so the first things are coming out of our pipeline now, and then the time frame is, you know, every year the improved varieties will continue to emerge from that pipeline from like now moving forward.
Right.
So the pipeline is, you know, a few years long, maybe, you know, five or 10 years long, but things were going to be continuously coming out of it now for a while.
That makes sense. And it looks like we do have the follow-up. So Ted was asking about organic, yellow, or white for what's available now commercially.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure there is commercial organic yellow and white seed out there. And
You had
certainly,
mentioned the pure maize that is patented. Is that the same gene as the GA1 that you developed, that your program developed?
um, I yeah, I probably shouldn't comment on that because I'm not sure it's a proprietary. I think that's proprietary information. And I don't know if it's publicly, you know, the status of the information, but the system performs in the way that our material performs with GA1S. The mechanics of the system are the same.
That makes sense.
I
So
just have a follow-up question for you, Paul, that might be interesting to the group. The genes that you do develop, do you look at patenting them or protecting them going forward for your own preservation or for resale?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, you know, I'm working for the USDA. I'm funded by public, you know, taxpayer dollars. And so what the USDA looks at is what is the best way to to benefit the public the most with our research, right? And sometimes patenting is the best way. If no company will touch this unless it's patented, then we can go ahead and patent it so that it can get into somebody's hands. But in my experience, material like this, I like to do public releases, make it available to everybody, and then people who want it can take it. It all depends on the users, right? What kind of agreement works best for the end users of the material, and we'll work with them to do whatever they need to commercialize our technology. That's a good question. And
Yeah, I'm glad that you're doing it for the public good. That makes me happy.
you know, there's a lot of ways to benefit the public as well, though. So if a seed company is able to develop a superior product from our technology, that benefits the public as well. So it's a complex, I guess, a complex situation.
definitely. And I think for that reason too, it would be awesome if you could do some partnerships like you were talking about with seed companies for the boot camp next year or the program in general. So
Right.
yeah. I think we've just got a couple more minutes left. So I just want to make sure to say that I'm going to be sending Paul's contact info out to each of you who are here today, and to definitely reach out to him if you're interested in the boot camp next year, which is scheduled to happen again, or the program in general. And then I think we have one more question that I will close with. What was the product name that Todd used with this subject? Was that I'm not quite, could you reply with the specific subject you're referring to there, unless Paul, you know?
So I think the only product that we've referred to is Pura Maize. So I'm guessing that that is what he's asking.
Oh, it was Travis. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that was it.
And I hope we won't be.
And yeah, feel free to feel free to reach out if you have more specific questions about anything we discussed today. So
Right. Yeah. If you want to send me an email, Ted, I'd be happy to talk about it.
awesome. Well, yeah, any closing thoughts, Paul and Travis? This was an awesome webinar, and we had some great questions. So thank you everyone for that as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for participating, and Travis, for your participating in our boot camp and for sharing your thoughts on it. That was great. And thanks, Kenneth, for organizing the webinar.
Of course. Yeah, thank you both so much. And I'm really glad we got some more information about this program out there, and that so many people were engaged with the Q&A. So yeah, thank you all.
Great sharing this information, and thanks, Kenneth, for putting this on. And thank you again, Paul, for all your work and your dedication to this. And it's great to see.
Absolutely. All right, well, I'll leave it at that for today, but we will see you all for our next webinar on March 4th.